or you had a comment?
Yeah, I would just comment on this, because this is one of those teachable moment opportunities, and I go back to mid-1990s when I was in the state legislature after serving 10 years in the pastorate and being a United Steelworker at U.S. Steel South Works in the south side of Chicago, and understanding that truth is something that's true, and we're not given to our own truth. Truth is truth. And I also represent a district now that includes and will continue to include Hillsdale College. And the benefit of having Hillsdale College in my district is Larry Arnn, the president, and I talk an awful lot about the Constitution. And if he's ever concerned about a constitutional issue on my vote, we talk about it. But sometimes we find ourselves, in order to get around some common thinking out there that isn't based on truth, we try to find a way to get past that and ameliorate the concerns. Back in the 90s, when Kurt Gibson, Ted Nugent, myself, and a number of other legislators, Al Cropsey, were trying to put through a straight CCW law, which responded to the U.S. Constitution, and if you read our state constitution, it in fact has a stronger article and section than even the U.S. Constitution's Second Amendment. I encourage you to read that. But let's go to the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion and so forth and so forth. Make no law. What does that literally state? Get the Second Amendment. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. What does that say? Now I think we've accepted, and I've been unhappy since the law was passed here in the state. Now it's good we have, we would say it's good we have something better than nothing. But did we give away our rights and responsibilities as citizens to say, no, wait a second. For true Federalists, we believe the states have the ultimate authority in most everything, except when you get to the Constitution and Bill of Rights. So if we truly believe in the Constitution, the Second Amendment, we should not be happy with our present CPL. I'm not. My wife carries a CPL permit as well. She's not. Because it is infringed upon my rights to keep and bear arms wherever I'm at, as a lawful citizen. A lawful citizen. You don't worry about me, because I'm not going to bother you. But the person who is unlawful could care less about this or the laws we have. And they need to know that there are lawful citizens carrying their rights and responsibilities on their hip or wherever else, and lawfully, willing to keep and bear arms, to do everything that it was intended for. So I just bring that up. And you'll find out I'm a bit of a contrarian at times, and a bit of a straight talker. I believe we have stepped back in this state and allowed something to go on that's going to be very difficult to change, because we acquiesced in order to get something through. And I'm endorsed by NRA, and I'm endorsed by Gun Owners of America, and all of that. And I understand the problems with perception, but patriots sometimes are willing to simply say, no, I'm not accepting a lesson. I am going to work within the confines of the Constitution and the laws of this state, and the electoral process, and the lobbying process of a citizen with my legislature, to make sure that you do not infringe upon my rights. Now, if I could get excited, I could tell you all about that. But that's where I stand, and I think it's worth saying.
Thank you, Mr. Worrell. I would ask you this question, since you've already warmed to the issue, and I've asked Mr. Haskell the same question. What do you see that you can do as a member of Congress? I mean, in this matter. I mean, this is I mean, that's far, far away and all that kind of stuff. But what do you see that can be done at the congressional level?
Well, I think there's very little that we can do other than supporting what has been done at the state levels, with Castle doctrines, with other laws been put in place. Because I can't do any better than point to the U.S. Constitution. I'm not going to call for a constitutional convention to make the Second Amendment better. It's great, and it's complete. But if we don't have legislators in the states saying to people that want to infringe upon rights through law or through the courts, if we're not willing to stand up, we have a very hard time in making this better. And certainly I'm not going to send the we're not going to send the military down to take over the states. That's just backwards as well. These are free and independent states, and the responsibilities and rights that we have here in Michigan ought to be held on tenaciously. And the few, this document is a lot smaller than our state constitution. The few rights and responsibilities that the federal government has confined in this Constitution, with its Bill of Rights and the first 10 amendments, ought to be left simple and ultimately used as the power or the power-packing punch to any state official or body that tries to supersede what's in place.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Haskell, do you see anything that could be done as a congressional representative?
Sure. I just want to say this is one of the few areas.
And let me remind you, the question was about gun-free zones and so forth.
Yeah. This is one of the few areas Mr. Wahlberg and I actually agree on, which are gun rights. He spoke Second Amendment. I agree 100%. It's a very short amendment. The right to bear arms shall not be infringed. There's no ifs, there's no ands, there's no buts. However, this would be a state law, and at the federal level, we wouldn't have a whole lot to say in this issue other than what I would do, which would be to use the position to try and change public opinion, to try and inform voters more that this law should be changed, and that's what I would do as a member of Congress. Position it as a pulpit, speak my piece about the Second Amendment. I think that would be the best way at the federal level to deal with this. And of course, any bills that would come before me that would infringe on.
Thank you, Mr. Haskell. Okay, here's another question, and I think the candidates have many of them already answered in their statements, but maybe, well, let's ask it anyways. Currently, only 5 states require guns to be registered. Do you support the repeal of these laws in Michigan? Now, most of you have already spoken on this, the fact that you like the NICS system and you think it's sufficient. Is there any divergence from that? Support or not support the current gun registration laws in Michigan, where you have to get a permit to buy your, the old safety inspection thing that's really a registration system? Yeah.
This is what the point we're trying to make, is that this is going to be voted on the 17th after the House and the Senate. And Snyder's trying to stall it so that it falls off the radar and goes away. And phone calls need to be made to the governor's office and to the senators at the state level to make sure this gets voted on. Because as a police officer, I can tell you, we did not need these pistol purchase permits to do our job. If we traced a firearm, we called ATF and they traced it all the way back. We didn't use the state permit system. So it's redundant, it's burdensome, and it doesn't I never found it in 30 years would ever help me as a cop. Enough said for that.
Thank you. Mr. Zorn, you have a comment on this?
Well, yeah, again, I'm very proud to say that I voted for the Golden House. And it's very true that if you want to move, you're going to have to do your part in making costs to the Senate, probably to the governor's office. I've already done that. I have talked several times with different members of the Senate, governor's office. I can't tell you where the bill's going to go. There could be some amendments come out yet. I'm sure it's going to be taken up on the 17th. But the one thing I know is for sure that this bill, Senate bill and House bill, we had 2 bills going back and forth, both very important to this very issue. And this would be, I'm not sure it'd be considered the starting point of turning some very serious laws around the state. Certainly would be a big part of the process. This bill is very important. And again, if we could turn these bills around, that we could repeal all laws to give you the opportunity to carry. We passed some bills this year to give you the opportunity to purchase long guns outside the state, as well as selling from outside the state. All these bills are very important to the very base of what you did, again, together working on these, so that in this particular case, the Senate and the governor's office, what the public is asking for. But it's, this is a big, there's no question about it.
Sure. Okay, the next question here. This is an astonishing question. I'd like to know who asked this. Well, that's Raheem. This brings up the subject of, like, home heating tax credits and things like that, all sorts of possibilities, but it goes towards firearms. And here's the question. Does anybody have a plan that would help seniors, low income, and working poor be able to buy, own a firearm for protection, and not just the rich? Who's asked that? That's a good question.
Thank you.
Yeah. Does anybody have a plan here? Does anybody have any ideas on this? Does anyone want to touch this one? I never did either, but it's a good question. Can you see any way that you might want to help?
Chime in? I haven't really given any thought. First time anyone's ever mentioned it, but I think anything like that would have a tax credit.
I guess maybe I was going at it from a little different angle. I'm looking at, as retirees get cuts in that to their pensions and whatnot. I know a retired person will buy a gun a year as an investment, because, usually guns don't go down in value. But then I got to think, well, what if somebody needs one for home protection and they fit into one of the categories I mentioned? I mean, I kind of feel like we're leaving them out.
I think that's all would have to be done. So which I think would be a good thing.
My position would be, let's grow the economy so people have the ability to purchase their homes. Let's encourage a society that accepts firearms and the Second Amendment as something normal, so they come to that stage in their life and they already have it. Now the question is, can they buy the ammunition? Well, for personal protection, you don't have to have huge caches on it. Though you might consider huge, others wouldn't. But let's make an economy that grows. Limit government, its expenditures, its borrowing, its programs that really don't go to the freedoms and legitimacies of what citizens are looking for, so that people have resources and they can make those value decisions on their own. Before we look at, we talked about tuition tax credits, so we talked about heating credits, we talked about home defense credits. If we keep doing our economy the way we are, maybe that will have to be. But if we grow our economy, then I think we can take care of it.
Maybe we could introduce something into the sportsman clubs, because I know the different clubs I belong to, and I've belonged to most all of them in the county over the years. Possibly, people that can't afford it, I know if somebody come up to Dundee Sportsman or maybe Sportsman, there'd be more than enough of us, I'm an arsenal if you got to my house. And I'm a militia myself, almost. And most of us are.
Right.
If I know this fellow here needs protection, there's somebody ragging on him or ratting him, and he needs some self-protection to save his family or his belongings or his property, I think it comes to a point where there'd be a lot of us people that would donate guns to go to certain people as long as they're qualified and can handle it, harming themselves or somebody else.
Henry Leeds first, and then you.
Well, one suggestion that I'd like the congressman can consider, there used to be a very robust civilian marksmanship program where you only paid basically the shipping cost for the ammo. And I remember shooting the M1 Grand in matches, and you received 60 rounds for the match for $2 of what it cost to ship it. And that was something you get all the rounds out of storage and blast them while they're still good and make new.
Great.
I think there's another option too that could be pursued for a firearm that was not used in a crime where it was shot at anybody, but merely the person was arrested because of the possession of the firearm, and there was no firearms trace that showed that this had ever been used in a crime other than just carrying it around. I think those kind of firearms that are seized by law enforcement agencies could be worked out with the NRA program to place some of those weapons back in, but currently they're all destroyed.
Yeah, I think he brings up a good point, because I don't want us to end up being the only people who can protect themselves are the wealthy.
Good point.
That to me just doesn't seem fair. I'm sorry for butting in.
No, that's a good butting in. This is audience